Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. By the age of 21, Branden Hampton was a millionaire. It was 2004. He owned $2.4 million in real estate. And yet 3 years later, he would lose it all and found himself battling a severe depression for the next 3 years. Well, one day, he finally pulled himself out of bed and he discovered Twitter. And within the next few years, he'd go on to capture and control the largest social media accounts and influencers online. Today, his personally owned accounts have a combined audience of over 32 million followers, and the celebrity clients like the Kardashians that his agency manages and works with has a reach of over 600 million people. So whenever you see a celebrity using or endorsing a product on social media, Branden and his company are the ones who most likely put that deal together. So today, you're going to hear his story of how he did it. You're going to get some of the most valuable advice in the world when it comes to effectively using social media and building up your channel. And you're going to learn how you can partner up with the world's biggest celebrities to help you grow your company and your brand. Today's episode is absolutely awesome, so please help me welcome Branden Hampton. All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Self-Made Man, and I'm really excited about our guest today and the topic that we're going to be discussing in general, which is social media. And we have one of the biggest names, brands, and experts in the business, Mr. Branden Hampton. So welcome to the show, Branden.
Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, our friend Garen introduced us, and I've been going through your story over the last, week or two, getting to know a little bit more about you. And you have a hell of a story. You definitely did not start out as a social media expert, but if you could, I'd love to dive into your original story and how you got started as an entrepreneur. But before you do that, to give people some context, can you tell people a little bit about the clients that you're currently serving right now and the social media properties that you currently own or control? Because I want to give people some juxtaposition about where you're coming from and where you are today.
Sure. So what we do essentially is we work with the top 200 social media influencers or so and all of the major celebrities in the world. And we're doing a lot of the product and brand integration that you see on, Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook. So if you ever see a A-list celebrity holding a product, or if you see an influencer talking about a brand or riding a hoverboard, chances are that it is either our product or we are behind putting that deal together.
Could you give me one or two maybe infamous examples?
Yeah. So, for example, one of the brands that we've built up is the biggest hoverboard brand, is U-Wheels. We did. When that whole sort of thing was hot, we placed them with just under 100 celebrities and influencers. We managed to get those posts, in trade for a board because everybody wanted one. So we actually didn't have to spend any marketing dollars except for the cost of the product. And, we had posts with like people, Amber Rose, Terrence J, the list goes on and on. Cameron Dallas, like we have, a virtually unlimited long list. Steve Aoki, some of the names that you'll just recognize. People were posting these organically, and we grew that brand. We did over $5 million in sales in 6 months.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you guys are literally the reason everybody started seeing hoverboard pictures on celebrity social media channels. That's pretty awesome.
There was one brand that launched, and then we just saw that, we sort of saw the trends that we look out for, and we saw something in this, and we knew it was going to be a crazy anomaly. And we just kind of rode the wave and built the wave. And again, when you have every social media influencer with over 500,000 followers posting about you, it's not really hard to get seen. We're getting 100 million plus eyeballs every single week. And that business was generating between $40,000 and $70,000 a day for us without any spend.
So that was going to be my next question. What is the approximate size or control of eyeballs and audience attention that you guys manage?
So I personally own a network of over 32 million followers, and that's across Twitter, Instagram mostly, and then there's some Facebook and some Snapchat. And then with the influencers that we have, I would say that it's probably somewhere in the 600 million plus range. And of course, there's a lot of crossover, but individual audience totaled up, it has to be over 600 million by now.
Wow, it's amazing. So naturally, the next question has to be, how in the world did you end up here?
Yeah, so funny kind of story. So prior to this, I'll give you the short version on, before the social media stuff, because it's, boring and it just kind of led up to this story. But I did sales for 12 years. And then I had a marketing company which did lead generation. So, would run Google ads. We would run media to generate people who were, doing any sorts of things, getting auto insurance or refinancing their home, getting out of debt. Those are the types of things that we were doing. And on the side, when Twitter, first kind of started, I didn't really understand it, but I got on there and I managed to build up about 1,000 followers. And only simply because I'm competitive, I started getting really aggressive with trying to find out, like, how can I have more followers? I want to have more followers than anybody else. And that was really what it was about. And then I managed to get 5,000 followers. And then I started reaching out to people. I started having, paying people to promote me. I started finding people with similar interests and similar audience targets. And then I would have them promote me and I would promote them. So I sort of did this big cross-pollination thing for a while. And then I was the first. Maybe there was somebody else, but I never found anybody. Like, I hit 100,000 followers on Twitter before any regular sort of like person did that was not a celebrity or an athlete or anything of that nature. When I hit 100,000 followers, Kendall Jenner had 400,000 followers. So just to give you some context as to how early that really was.
So what were you thinking, as you're building up this following? What is your ultimate plan at that point? Or was it strictly like, I'm going to build up an audience and I'll figure out what the heck I'm going to do with it later? Or did you have a plan?
At that point, it was purely about my ego. I wanted the most followers. What I would do is I sort of found an area that wasn't really being satisfied on Twitter. There was people who were getting a lot of attention and getting a lot of engagement, growing their accounts really fast, and they were posting quotes. Then there was people who were posting sort of jokes, a lot of puns and stuff like that, like comedy writers for Saturday Night Live and all these different shows would build up, tens of thousands of followers posting jokes. And what I did is I went with an extreme, and I was posting really, really, really aggressive and offensive stuff because nobody else was doing that. And because I was willing to say the things and joke about the things that nobody else was, I sort of carved out my audience, which was, anybody who thought that type of stuff was funny. And again, to be able to get to 100,000 followers, I still didn't really have any plan at that point. I just wanted to aggressively build my following. Mm-hmm. Then what I started to notice was that as the audience and amount of users on Twitter grew, there started to be more general population, type people with broad interests. And then again, quotes, was something that resonated again because it just applies to everybody. If you type something motivating or if you publish something that, can provide somebody with a warm, fuzzy feeling, that reaches, almost anybody and everybody. And that type of stuff was getting a lot more engagement than me. So what I did was I thought, well, if this guy who I believe his name was Greg something, Greg's posting quotes on his page. And I thought, well, if I'm posting jokes on my page and he's posting quotes on his, I wonder if the voice matters. So what I did is I managed to get from a friend the username Dave Chappelle. It was no random characters, no misspellings. It was just the handle Dave Chappelle. And I started using my original jokes on the Dave Chappelle username, and the engagement just went crazy. It went insane. And I started to think, well, I'm writing these jokes and they're coming from me, but people think they're much funnier coming from Dave Chappelle. So that makes sense to me now. So what I did is I thought, if this guy can do quotes under his name, who is sort of the Dave Chappelle in that category? And what I came up with is that it wasn't a person, it was actually a movie. So I started a page called The Notebook, and I started using quotes and I started posting them under the Notebook account. And of course, naturally, they got 10 to, multiples and multiples of more engagement than the guy Greg's page did. So I managed to sort of change the voice. And that's when I realized that where the content is coming from matters just as much as the content does.
Interesting. And so what did you do from there?
From there, I managed to build up the notebook to about 30,000 followers in the first week. And mind you, it took me a year and a half to get 100,000 followers on my personal page. And then I happened to get reposted by Kendall Jenner. And then when she reposted me, she actually followed my page. And then that got Kim and Chloe to also follow the page, and they retweeted it. And of course, this was at the time when they weren't doing paid social media stuff. They were just reposting stuff that they liked. And they had no idea that the value of what they were doing for me for free, resulted in, this sort of empire that I've built. So getting in early enough to where, A-list celebrities and huge names with huge followings were willing to repost me. I propelled to over 100,000 followers a couple weeks after that. And then now that page was rated by Forbes #1 most engaged brand on Twitter above Disney. And that page currently has 5.5 million followers.
So I have to ask, do you have a set of guidelines or rules, or best practices is the best term that I could use, when it comes to social media? And I bring that up for a specific reason. I'm a fairly introverted person. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of video production, but putting stuff out on social media on a daily basis for me is akin to like torture. It doesn't come naturally. It doesn't come easily. And I have to actually force myself to do it. And so therefore I tend to not do it. I'm a one tweet or retweet, thing per week kind of a guy. And yet there's so much opportunity right now, and there's so many benefits to pursuing that. The only alternative that I can think of is to outsource it. But my personal opinion when it comes to social media is that authenticity matters more than anything else. And by trying to outsource your social media activity, you're kind of breaking the #1 rule of social media, which is the fact that people are following you because they want access to you. They want to follow you. So, how do you guys handle that? What is your philosophy when it comes to that?
Yeah, so there's a two-sided answer. And it's funny you bring this up. There's actually an entrepreneur article that I just did, entrepreneur.com, last week. And the #1 rule of the 7 that I created was be transparent. So it's a really, really funny timing. Now, the two-part answer to that is you want to present you want to present yourself. You don't have to. If you have to force yourself, then I think that you're going with the wrong approach. I think that, people sometimes get in the mode and they're like, what do I tweet, or what photos should I post on Instagram today? Instead of just naturally, going about their day-to-day life and saying, this is the thought that I'm having. This is the, emotional state that I'm currently in, or this is my opinion on this topic. Those are things that sort of happen naturally to me. And I don't ever think like, what should I tweet, or, sort of say like, it's time to tweet. Now I have to come up with something. So that's part of it is you want to be you. And that it's the same thing like me. Like, for example, like I cuss in my everyday speech, right? And I'm not super vulgar, but I, cuss if I'm describing something. Like I'm very passionate when I speak about stuff. So I cuss on social media, and that might fly with some people. That might fly with some brands. That might not fly with some brands that want to work with me, or might not fly with a follower that wants to follow me. And that's okay. And I'm okay with that, because I know that I'm not going out of my way to present myself in a certain way that's not actually me, just to win somebody over. And, those are the type of people that I don't want follow me anyways, because, they're probably never going to buy anything I'm selling. They're probably never going to take my advice. The brands are probably not going to run campaigns with me. And again, I want the audience that's dedicated, that likes me, that likes the authentic, transparent version of me. And that's all I'm after there. The second part to that question is that I use pretty aggressively content that already exists on the internet, on some of my pages. And, we curate just as much as we create in a lot of instances, because if there's a meme that's going viral, or if there's some sort of, song that's hot, or if there's, there's always these different topics and things to play on. And those are some of the most engaging things is, while the VMAs is on, you're posting about the VMAs. That's going to be, the most engaging type of content. When this, viral meme sort of thing happens with damn Daniel, like if you're not talking about that at the time, then you're losing. So part of it is being transparent when you're talking about your own stuff and being yourself and having your own voice. Just be you as much as you are. And then when it comes to content curation, don't be scared to repost other people's things. Don't be scared to use content that already exists out there. And of course, in certain instances, you need to credit, who it belongs to, if it's like a proprietary to a photographer or something of that nature. But for the most part, it's public domain once it's out on the internet in a lot of cases. And, nobody's going to really come after you for reposting a viral video that, has them in it. So that's kind of my two-part answer is number one, be transparent with who you are when you're presenting yourself. And the second thing is don't be scared to go curate other people's content and post what people are looking for.
Do you have any other rules when it comes to best practices on social media that you could share? One of them for myself has always been, I've always found it incredibly confusing and interesting that the whole "I'll follow you if you follow me" crowd.
Yeah.
For me, that's never made any sense whatsoever, because they're following you and you're following them because you want your number to go up, not because you want to listen to anything they're actually saying.
Well, what's funny is that if you search for, go to Twitter, type in social media expert, social media ninja, social media wizard, social media guru, and a lot of these guys have 400,000 followers, and they also follow 400,000 people.
Right.
And that's the easy indicator of someone being full of shit, other than the fact that, they might have, 500,000 followers and then they get 2 retweets.
It's the first thing that I look at on somebody's Twitter handle. If that's their profile statistic, if you will, it's an automatic not follow for me, because this person can't have anything of value to say, or they wouldn't have had to follow 400,000 people. Correct.
And the same thing too is like when you when someone follows you just for a follow, they're never going to read your content, they're never going to engage, they probably know nothing about you. It's not a real, it's as close to a fake follower as you can get, except for this one has a pulse. Right. Like that's the long and short of it is, if you're, and besides, like, I follow on Twitter, I don't know what the number is, but I follow like 1,000 people on Twitter and 1,000 people on Instagram, roughly, somewhere in the 800 to 1,000 range. And it's really hard for me to keep up with my feed as it is. So if someone's following 40,000 or 400,000 people, they don't see anything. So You're never going to get a retweet. You're never going to get an engagement. They're never going to provide any value. They're never going to have any input on what you're talking about. So again, it is just a number, but in the end, the social media guru just looks silly because now everybody knows, and that secret is sort of exposed. Same thing if they could only follow 10 people and then have 500,000 followers. But if they get 2 retweets or 8 retweets and 500,000 people, then either A, their content sucks, or B, their followers are fake.
Yeah, agreed. So you built your first big following on Twitter. When did you figure out that you could turn this into a business for yourself?
Yeah, so with Notebook, was somebody approached me, and it was an agency, and they said, "Can we pay you to post a tweet?" And I didn't understand at that time what they meant. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I have to admit that in the early stages of this, I didn't realize that there was a business opportunity until somebody actually pointed it out to me. And again, it was 6 years ago, early time in social media. The word influencer wasn't even a word yet until about 6 months to a year after I started. So I was completely blind. I was really aggressively collecting followers, which was the good thing is I was doing that right, but I didn't look for any monetization strategy. So someone comes to me and they says, can you post a tweet for us? And I was like, why? I don't, and they're like, well, we just want exposure to your audience. Okay. And it was a photo for Sundrop Soda. And I guess they were doing a big social media push, trying to reinvigorate the brand. And they said, all you have to do is go to the store, you take a picture of a Sundrop soda can that you buy, and post it on your feed. You just have to use the hashtag Sundrop in there somewhere, and send us the link once it's posted, and that's it. And they paid me $1,000. And I think I had 800,000 followers at the time on Notebook, somewhere around there. So I said, okay. So I really didn't want to go to the store. So I went on Google Images. I took a picture of Sundrop Soda. I put a filter over it. And I came up with a funny hashtag that I thought was cool. Again, I didn't take it serious at this time because it was the first time somebody had approached me with this. And so I came up with something that I thought was funny. And I'm like, they're paying for this, so I'm going to try to hook them up. I want them to get engagement. And if I post what they want me to post, which was, something boring with the hashtag Sundrop, then it's not going to get any engagement. I'm like, I know what I'm doing because I have a lot of followers, so I'm going to do what I want to do. So what I did was I said, summer's just around the corner. I can't wait to sun drop it like it's hot. And that was when the song Drop It Like It's Hot was really popular. So I thought it was cool to tie into that. Like I just said earlier, like you have to be talking about what's popular at the time. You have to be in line with sort of pop culture and stuff. So I said, can't wait to sun drop it like it's hot. And of course they loved it. It got tons of engagement. And I just found out recently, and that was between 5 and 6 years ago. I just found out recently because I told this story to somebody and they said, yeah, I've seen the commercial. And I had no clue what they were talking about, but they actually turned that line into a commercial. They went out and licensed that song, Drop It Like It's Hot, and made a Sundrop commercial out of it.
Wow. That's a nice $1,000 investment for that idea.
Yeah. It was as opposed to hiring a shitty creative agency for $100,000. Yeah.
Do you know, did they ever mention to you if there was any kind of ROI on the results? Did they, just even from a follower perspective on their channel, right?
Well, see, the thing is they weren't promoting their social media. They were just promoting the brand. What I always say is there's a few different types, classifications when you run a social media campaign. And for a brand of that size, it's always a brand awareness thing. They're not like, I always use the example of a soda company, coincidentally. And I say, listen, if Sundrop or Pepsi or Coke comes and they spend $250,000 running a campaign with us, they're not going to be able to go into their analytics and see a spike in soda sales. They're never going to do that. They just want to know how many eyeballs were on their brand's name that particular week. And their goal is to have between 5 and 7 views per person in the entire universe every single week. Like that's their goal. If Coke is running commercials and buying TV ads, and they're on, the displays at the shelves, they want you to see their brand name 5 to 7 times, and that's considered effective for them. So it's all about impressions for them and repetitiveness. So top of mind, when you see, Coke 15 times a week for 6 months and you see Pepsi 5 times a week for 6 months, naturally one would assume that you're going to buy Coke, and the studies have shown that. So they just care about the impressions. Whereas if a startup comes to me for a teeth whitening company, for example, they say we sell a $36 product, and if we spend $10,000, we need to get more than $10,000 in sales or we're going to go out of business.
Right.
Big difference. Product company is one. They have a budget. They have to have a direct ROI. Branding dollars are much different. Those are the major corporations with, hundreds or thousands of employees. And it's in their game plan to just spend money for people to see the brand as opposed to convert.
So essentially, you became a facilitator between people with audiences and brands with money and products to sell. Is that a fair assumption?
So it sort of was an evolution. So that was the first time that I got paid. And then after that, I went out and looked for opportunities. So I would reach out and say, for example, Notebook had 800,000 followers. Majority of them were women. So what I would do is I would approach online e-commerce stores and I would say, hey, look, you're selling women's clothes. I have women that follow my page. You should post them. And, it only made sense for them to do so because as opposed to spending, digital dollars or going out and doing traditional marketing, it was really, really cost effective. At the same time, they would get more engagement and more data on how good it worked, what their direct ROI was. And then, of course, later, it's still today, it's much more effective, much more data, and a lot cheaper than traditional media. So it's been that way since day one. So the natural progression of the business was that companies were responding well to my inquiries, about them spending dollars with us and the results that they were getting. So I thought, well, now I need to take it a step further. The same way I analyzed and found out that quotes were going to get a lot more engagement than anything else, I went out and I said, now, what companies have the biggest budgets? Where are people spending the most money advertising, and where are more buyers spending their money? And I landed on the fitness and nutrition space. Health is one of the biggest categories in the world. It's the highest monetizing category in the world. And I started a page called Fitness. Now, Fitness has 2.2 million followers. And what I would do is I would go out and I would get people who were advertising supplements and athletic wear and any other products under the sun that, improved your health. And people were responding really well to those. And then I just went down the list. And now I own the username Fitness on Instagram, for example. I own the username Weddings, Shoes, Makeup, Beauty, Marijuana, Beer, Guns. Like, I have all these categories that people are engaging with and where people are spending the most money and engaging a lot of their time and resources. And what started happening was, as social media's influencers became a thing, Vine stars were created and YouTube stars and people with big Twitter and Instagram followings. I started being sort of liaison to those people between them and the brands, and then also the brands and those people, because the brands already knew about me because I had made a pretty big dent in this space really early. And then the influencers said, well, I have a big audience, but I don't know how to monetize it. This company's making me an offer and I don't know if I should accept it. So what naturally started to happen is the influencers will come to us for advice. If their page gets hacked, or if they get a contract, or like literally no matter what it is, I deal with, a couple hundred influencers on a pretty regular basis where they'll come to me with anything and everything because they trust our opinion. I don't manage them or represent them in any official capacity. I just try to help them as much as I can because it's a relatively new space. And then on the opposite side, the brands find out about me. They find out about the connections that I have and the people that I work with. And they say, of course, if you have the top 200 influencers and celebrities in the world, we need to come to this guy and we need to give him our budgets. So what I'm doing is, without taking advantage of the situation, I'm playing both sides. So I can help the brands do an effective campaign where they can get an ROI and see positive results. And then I can also help the influencers make as much money as possible, not get taken advantage of, create deals that are smart for them and their personal brand.
Very cool. Very cool. And you mentioned that you do a lot of that just, for free from a goodwill perspective. How do you guys eventually turn that into, a business relationship for yourselves?
Sure. So what we'll do is we do these sort of typical agency style on our campaigns with the brands. We'll take anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending on the size of the campaign. And then the reason that it makes it more effective is because we have really great relationships with influencers. And because of the fact that we bring them volume deals, and by that I mean, I have 36 companies that I either own or am a part of. And then we have our own products that we're buying promotional posts for. We're sort of, keeping everybody afloat and, getting them consistent revenue. And then on the brand side, if I have a great relationship with an influencer that charges, let's say, $5,000 for a post, and I can get that for 50% of the cost because it's my sort of friends and family rate, if you will, with the influencer, because I have such a great relationship. Now their $50,000 spend is going to go much, much further because I can fit in more influencers to that campaign. And then so even after they're paying us our agency fee, which we'll call 20%, they're still getting way more than they would otherwise because we're going out and we're getting all these sort of friends and family rates with the influencers. Depending on who you're working with, we try to make it fair for everybody where the influencer's compensated appropriately, the brand gets what they want. And the pitch to the brands is like, look, using me as a resource, you're going to get way further than you can on your own because you don't have to hire somebody full time to manage all these different personalities and people and time schedules and everything else that is a variable when you're dealing with a few dozen influencers. And then also on the influencer side, the pitch is, hey, I bring you consistent revenue. There are opportunities, that are sort of endless as we continue to funnel deals to them. And, it just makes sense for everybody because we're sort of a single contact point for everybody. And we have direct relationships with everybody. I don't deal with any managers. I don't deal with any agents. I'm dealing straight with the personalities. And that makes it very, sort of frictionless.
I'm wondering if there's been any kind of, you've got to have some crazy stories, like train wrecks or something with celebrities or something where you had to come in and save the day, or I could just imagine it's a pretty crazy world.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty interesting stories. But at the end of the day, I have to run a campaign for 25 grand, and I've got 20 different influencers. These are mostly younger people that have no, certain, responsibilities. A lot of them don't have kids. A lot of them travel a lot. So, one person might be in Australia, and I have to track them down to make sure they do a post at this time. And one person wants to be paid on PayPal, and another wants a bank wire, and there's all these different variables, but inside my brain I have all this information stored. So it's like if I'm working with these 25 people, I know all of the 5 or 6 different variables for each of those individuals. Sometimes people get mad that they can't post at a different time that they want, or they change their mind about posting for a specific product, or they want to be creative geniuses and go outside of the lines of the caption or context that the brand is suggesting for them to post on their caption. So there's all these different variables. But at the end of the day, again, I would say that I'm a pretty trustworthy source. Both sides of the fence, put their trust in me to run the campaign, to execute it properly, to make sure everybody's paid and all that good stuff. So although there are, a few different instances, it's usually never any big fires that we can't put out.
So let me switch to a strategy piece real quick here, and I'll use a personal challenge that I'm dealing with and trying to figure out at the moment. But for the last year and a half, I've been working on a product and a new company that will be launching hopefully this December. And if you could imagine if Apple designed this futuristic appliance for your house that looked really amazing, and it grew all of your organic produce for you every month automatically, right there in your house. That's kind of what it is. So it's visually really appealing, kind of stunning. Nobody's ever seen anything like it before, and it does some really cool stuff when it comes to food production. We're trying to put together our marketing and launch strategy for that campaign come December. And I've talked to Gary Vaynerchuk and his team. I know you guys are friends. We're going to be flying out to VaynerMedia in a couple months to do a strategy session. And what I'm trying to wrap my brain around with is, correct me if I'm wrong along my line of thinking here, is, first and foremost, choosing the correct channel based on the product. And because it's visual, my thoughts are that Instagram is probably the best home, to build a following for this. Is that one of the first things that we should consider?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I always suggest to people is to find out and focus on the right platforms. Like if you sell a product like this, like you don't need to be on Google Plus. Side note, nobody needs to be on Google Plus. It's really about finding where your audience is. There's a lot of older demographic, probably a higher income level on a Facebook, for example. There's a lot more women, a lot more people who are consumers on Pinterest. I think that, and Gary will attest when you go to Vayner that he's going to include Pinterest in that, and he's a big Pinterest fan, as am I for consumer products of that nature. You when you are in a visual industry, you have to be on the products that offer the most benefit to visuals. So Instagram and Pinterest are going to be your biggest two. And then, of course, you have to advertise on Facebook. Those are because once you know who your audience is and you know who your consumer is, you can run dark post advertising and reach exactly who you want to reach. And when it comes to the other social platforms, like Twitter, you don't really need Twitter for something that's visual, right? It's more of a news feed. That's more something when you're posting links. I think that Facebook video should be a big focal point for you, as should YouTube, because keep in mind, YouTube is not just a video network. It's also the second largest search engine in the world behind Google. And if you have a product that's something that you can demonstrate and that requires an education process, YouTube is going to be a big one for you as well. So it's just not only finding the right network, but creating the right content on each platform that is to the benefit of that platform and is to the benefit of your product.
Yeah, Facebook, without a doubt, that's number one. YouTube is number two. And the primary reason for that is because there's such amazing and mature advertising platforms that, buying eyeballs is easy, as opposed to, let's say, a Pinterest or an Instagram, where that's more of a newer feature, to those platforms. So, if we've got the challenge is like, let's just use Instagram or Pinterest. If we've got 30 days to do a pre-launch campaign for this, and it's kind of being kept under wraps until then, that means that we can't spend the next 6 to 7, 8 months building up a following ahead of time. And so we've got to hit the ground running with 30 days. So is it just simply hard and heavy paid advertising at that point, or is it working with someone like yourself who would do, third-party, partnerships or endorsements and things like that? Because it's going to be such a short window, and nobody knows it exists right now, and they won't until the day that it launches, right? So that's kind of been the catch-22.
Yeah, I think for a product like this, the education part is the most important. And your two biggest advantages are going to be what you said, is that Facebook and YouTube have the most sophisticated advertising platforms. In fact, they're the only good ones. Everything else is complete garbage. Much data behind what they're doing that you can target down to, you say, hey, you want to target 40-year-old women who have made a donation in the past 6 months to some sort of charity and have a child with a birthday that is within the next 30 days, then you can target that person. If you know exactly who your customer is, this is, something that's very important to anybody that's selling a product or service. If you know exactly who your customer is, you can buy customers on Facebook.
Right. Yeah. That's my 99% of my business revenue for the last 5 years.
And, I have friends, once they crack the code and they figure out exactly who their customer is, the problem becomes that they don't have enough cash flow to spend the money that would support all of the Facebook business that they could buy. And what I mean by that is, if my friend has a $40 product and he knows that his acquisition cost is exactly $6.81, that means he can spend as many $6.81 as he wants and buy unlimited $40 sales. But the problem becomes, he's spending $100,000 a day, and he just can't spend any more of that because it becomes a cash flow thing at that point. So again, the science, the math, the algorithms, everything's there no matter what product or service that you're selling. You just have to be able to figure that out. And once you get to that point, again, it doesn't matter if you're selling something that's $10 or $40 or $5,000. If you can get your acquisition cost on a consistent basis over a large sample size to be under the value of a sale, then you can print money. You buy customers.
That is you're speaking my language.
Yep. And but so Facebook video and YouTube video will be your biggest winners for what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, because number one, you can buy targeted viewers, and then number two, again, it's something that you can demonstrate. It's really hard to explain, even in your short sort of elevator version that you gave me a minute ago about what the product does. It took more than 15, and that's the cap on Instagram video. And although you could give a highlight reel version on Instagram and then lead over and say, go watch the full clip on YouTube, it's harder to win somebody over if there's a longer education process. But if you can do a 1 minute, 55-second video, which is the sweet spot for video, on Facebook and YouTube, and push it out to the people who most need to see it, because those are your targeted customers, whoever you identify as those, push it to as many people like that as you can, that's going to get your best conversion. For the method that you want, where you don't have months and months to build a brand, the education process is a 2 minute or under video on YouTube and Facebook video.
Yeah, agreed. Very cool. Thank you for that. So
absolutely,
you've just really described my business model that I've used for the last 3 to 5 years on Facebook, and that I've taught a lot of my students. And it really, I think, probably hints, you tell me if I'm wrong, with the subject matter of the book that you've been writing recently. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to share that, because I love the title and I think it's going to get a lot of interest.
Yeah. So the way that this sort of came about is that my partner and I, my partner is Dan Fleshman. He's the youngest founder of a publicly traded company. We have a partnership in about 36 different businesses right now. And between him and I, we get a lot of inquiries on our social media, and we've sort of collected those results mentally for a long time, and we don't have time because we're so spread thin across all of our different projects. We don't have time to do consulting. We would love to help people. We like us inspiring new young entrepreneurs, helping people launch their business, helping people get their idea off the ground, helping people improve their existing business and save their companies. We enjoy all of that stuff. It's just that we're spread so thin. So the most common question that we get is, how do I get my idea off the ground? How can I get started? What are the steps to do? What's first? I have an idea. How do I make it real? And the most common misconception that people have is that it's super expensive to start a company and to launch a product and to launch a business. And they think they need investors, and they get way ahead of themselves. So the book that we wrote is compiling all of the basic knowledge and some advanced stuff as well on launching a product, getting it off the ground. And it's called How to Set Up Your Business for Under $1,000. It gives you all the resources that you need, from product development, launching a company, collecting payments from customers, managing your support, shipping. It covers every single topic that you could possibly imagine. And we compiled it into one resource because that's the most common question that we get. And we wanted to hit the biggest market first. So this is for people who are, they have a business and they need additional resources. They have an idea and they want to make it into a real company, or they are, sort of in that limbo and they just don't know what direction to go. It gives you all the information that you need to get to that next step.
Very cool. So when's that going to be coming out?
That will be coming out at the end of this month. And we don't actually have a launch date set because we're waiting on a few different variables, but we like to go hard and we like to go big. We're going to do the most epic book launch ever. We're going to do a live event.
Those are fighting words for Gary.
Oh yeah. We're going to do, Gary, we helped him promote his book. We got a bunch of copies at our office and we're posting it and talking about it and hyping it up. So Gary's awesome. We love Gary. And, we have some creative ideas that we're sort of finalizing for our book launch. And, we're going to do a bunch of influencers are going to come out. How I said, we kind of reserve our favors. We don't really ask for much. We like to provide a lot of value. So, we're going to have a lot of influencers come and show up, and we think that we can attract a pretty big crowd. I don't know what the Guinness World Record is, but I definitely want to ask them if they want to come by and see about our possible biggest book launch ever.
Nice. Well, I'd be happy to support you guys, whenever that happens, any way that I can. So let me know. Yeah,
absolutely. So again, it'll be How to Set Up Your Business for Under $1,000. It's going to be published on Amazon, so it'll be available there. And for updates as far as the date and stuff, the easiest way is just to follow my social media. Again, I'm the social media guy, so naturally that's my answer. So my handles are really easy. It's CEO on Twitter. And then I'm Money on Instagram and Snapchat.
Cool. And so we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to switch gears just a little bit. One of the goals for this podcast is to really put the successful role models in front of our listeners, in front of our audience, to not only provide some education and mentorship, but some inspiration as well. We didn't have time to dig into your history, before you found social media, but it was, you've got a pretty incredible story there with some very big lessons learned. If you could share for the next 5 or 10 minutes, the values or the decisions that you've made in your life, the guiding principles that have really helped you achieve the success that you've had with everybody listening right now, I think that would be unbelievably valuable to them.
Yeah. So, there's a blog post that is on my page, website, brandenhampton.com. Scroll down a little bit. It's called Depression, Procrastination, and Maybe Success. And that you can use as a reference point. But here's the thing. Like I've been through a whole lot, and I failed a bunch of times, and I hate to sound, corny and talk about failure and, how it's imperative. It's not. Like a lot of people have success the first time around, but most people don't. And I made a lot of money when I was, 18, 19, 20 years old. I had, $1 million house when I was 21. And that's not like in LA. I'm talking about $1 million house in Central California where there's $150,000 average home price. So I like had it all, but then I lost it. And, it was some timing issues and a bunch of different variables that some were in my control, some were not. And it's all an experience. And, the difference between an entrepreneur who is successful, somebody who's successful, or somebody who keeps, after that success is just somebody who doesn't give up. There's a lot of people who sort of sit and cry about the results. And I'll admit, I'm the first to admit, I did that for 3 years almost. I mean, I didn't leave my house. I ate fast food every day. I drank a 30-pack of Pepsi every 2 days. I, sat and watched TV, and it's just like I was sulking and I was crying. And I finally woke up one day and I was just like, this shit's never going to go away. I'm not going to get back what I had. And I'm certainly not going to wake up a multimillionaire by, crying about the past. And, take everything that happens to you and look at that as experience. If someone walks up to you and they cock their arm back, maybe you're going to get punched in the face and maybe you don't. But after you get punched in the face, you'll know what an arm cocking back means next time, and you won't make that same mistake. And it's just a learning process. And the thing that's most important to me is other than the things that I've learned on social media and I'm good with numbers and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, networking, building a relationship with as many people as you can, providing value to as many people as you can, and going out and just hustling. And I mean that in a positive way, nothing manipulative, nothing bad, not the bad kind of hustling. I just mean going out, working hard and going after your goals. Like that's just the way to do it. And at the end of the day, again, it comes down to your network. And it also comes down to one of the most important things that I value is like asking. You have to be able to ask for help. You have to be able to ask for advice. The restaurant's booked. You have to ask if they have a table that's reserved for somebody that, can you be on the waiting list? Can I wait on the side to see if anything clears up? All the time there's situations where things happen, and it could be in business, it could be in real life, but just don't take people's initial answer, especially in sales. Like I learned this really well, like people's first answer doesn't always uncover the truth. There's obstacles that you have to overcome. There's hurdles that you have to overcome. And eventually, if you press hard enough and you try hard enough, the things that you want to happen in your life will happen. You just can't accept things for the way that they are. You have to make them how you want them to be.
That's some wisdom right there. And, I just find it amazing that, by the age of 21, you were worth millions of dollars, lost it all, went through this depression, and you dragged yourself out of it, and you're back at the top of, your industry again. It's just awesome. So, Branden, man, thank you so much for the time today. This has been one of my favorite interviews that we've ever done. The knowledge that you bring to this game and your area of expertise is absolutely amazing. The book sounds awesome. I can't wait to read it. Guys, if you want to give Branden some love, make sure you head over to this blog post and ask him some questions in the comments. Say thank you if you learned something from the show today, as I'm sure that you did. And make sure that you go check him out and connect at brandenhampton.com. That's spelled with an E-N instead of an O. And Branden, thank you so much, man. This was awesome.
You got it, man. Appreciate it.
Once again, thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, make sure that you check out the Self-Made Man Society over at selfmademansociety.com. You guys are going to join me on a global adventure around the world as I introduce you to the people on my team who've helped me grow my 2 8-figure businesses over the years, invest my money, and improve my life in every way so that they can do the same for you. You're going to meet my traffic team, the guys who do all of my Facebook advertising, my investment team, my attorneys, and my business mentors, so that you can use them as well and tap into their knowledge and experience. So definitely check it out. This is, I have to say, the coolest project that I've ever done in my career as an entrepreneur over the last 10 years. And if you're not a part of this, you are definitely missing out. So check it out, selfmademansociety.com, and we'll see you guys next week.